Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome back to Cosmic Hypnosis. I'm Bob, and in this video, we're taking a look at the second half of a QHHT session recorded on August 8th, 2022, which focused around my current parallel lifetime as Tyus, an Andromedan Diplomat, Warrior, and Captain, here to assist Earth at this time. If you haven't heard the first half, or would like to start listening from the first session where my personal healing begins, I'll include links to both in the description so you can go back and give them a listen. The first part of today's video focuses on my healing journey that is centered around my personal life and how to best navigate those circumstances and relationships. Some relationships you fix, and some you move on from, but they all take work, especially when they revolve around such heavy topics as my experience with Dylan's passing and the truth that goes along with it, which is again touched upon in this segment where we hear from Dylan directly as he comes through in session to speak with us today. The second half of this segment focuses heavily on the secret space program and the exploration of my memories, how my time in Solar Warden and my connection with space weaves throughout my daily life, information on Andromeda's plans with me, how my phone was tampered with, and a few questions on miscellaneous topics that we explore today. As the second halves go on, the insight builds as time passes, as I am able to heal from my personal experience and shift focus from various topics of exploration. We see not only insight into Solar Warden begin to reveal itself, but also the Andromedans, and in turn, the Galactic Federation. Through these ongoing sessions, a thread begins to emerge that ties my experience together as I have grown along this path. It is very humbling standing in front of the internet and sharing my personal struggle and how my life has blossomed into this incredible experience. But I look at struggle as a gift and an opportunity for expansion. My life has evolved in ways that I never expected, and I feel that it is my duty to share that story with the public. It is my hope that through sharing my evolutionary process through my life and my QHHT sessions with you, that I can help inspire you to set out on your personal path of self-discovery and expansion. We are all special beings. We just have to remember and allow ourselves to openly shine as our true selves out into the world. Enjoy part 2.
Bob had actually had a question about the white light that we use for healing. And where does it come from?
Source.
Comes from source. Okay.
We channel this white healing light from source and we allow it to nourish our body, regenerating our tissues back to their healthy original state.
What is the best method to use the healing light for ourselves and for others?
Imagine the white healing light coming in through meditation via your crown chakra and washing over your entire body like a blanket, like sand falling into an hourglass. Watch it fill up your entire body. Imagine it moving through your body like waves on a beach. And as it washes across your entire body, imagine it washing away all of the negative energy, replacing that with good positive healing energy, healing white light. Look at it like a liquid, almost like a white liquid glue that's healing your body and putting it back together, washing over yourself, allowing that white healing light to do the work.
Okay. Bob had some miscellaneous questions that he thought we'd get over with first. He was curious if you could tell him who he was in Egypt.
Bob's been getting the sense that it might be a Ramses, but it's unclear.
Okay.
Bob's wondered about that for a little bit now, but it's all that's coming to us at this time.
Okay. Bob sometimes has an issue with maybe getting caught up with expectations and the reality of what happens in a situation. He was curious how he maybe...
Don't know what you're talking about.
Well, like he'll have a situation that will be the scenario that he will expect to be playing out maybe in a conversation with somebody and it maybe goes a different direction. That can frustrate him sometimes. I was curious maybe how he could not get caught up in.
Can't control other people. Okay. There'll always be a wild card. You can only control yourself.
Speaking of other people, he's been struggling a bit with his mom. He was wondering how he could navigate this situation.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Do they just
find the values that mean something to you and stand in them? Get rid of all the bullshit that you know doesn't serve you. All the things that you carry around with you that don't matter. All your bad habits, get rid of them. Your propensity to let your anger boil over, get rid of that. Work through that. If you can make yourself a stand-up person and something that you believe in, doesn't matter. Don't give other people a reason to look down on you, and it doesn't matter what they think. People aren't going to like what Bob does. He's about to do things that are going to bother a lot of people. Brent, your mom, his mom, other people, they're not going to understand Bob because he's going to say things and with conviction, and people are going to look at him like he's crazy, and he's not going to waver publicly. He's going to waver privately, but he will not show it publicly. Bob's very good at hiding things from people when he wants them to be hidden. He won't hide them from you because that's the way he works through his thoughts. Otherwise, they will eat him alive and he will not do well with them. He has to continue to speak to you about them, and you just need to continue to listen as best you can. And do not include your judgment. Do not let Bob hear it in your voice, because he will pick up on that. And it will make him very angry, because he will feel like you're judging him. Even though you do not judge him, he feels like he is judged all the time by everybody, including you, even though you do not mean it. But that's how he interprets a lot of things, because he judges himself constantly. No one is a harsher critic on Bob than Bob. But he looks at everybody like they're judging him, constantly criticizing. But he just needs to, like I said, identify the things that mean something to him. Stand in those values. Do your work. Focus on what you need to be doing. And everything will fall into place. And the people that want to be there and support you will be there and support you. And those that are on their own journey, learning their own lessons that don't come around to those things, that's just what they have to learn, unfortunately. Bob will be okay with managing some of that. Some of the people that Bob cares about deeply that struggle with it, Bob will struggle. And he'll struggle not taking it personally, but he just needs to remember that you just have to be the example. Let other people do the learning at their own pace.
So should he just let the situation with his mom play out? Let her come to him eventually? Or will he know how to?
Bob's debated reaching out. He can reach out if he wants to, but it's going to be a contentious conversation. Something, if Bob sits down to have a conversation, Amy needs to be there with him. He should not do it on his own. He should not bring Lucy with him either, and Ryan should not be there. And if Elise is there, she's going to want to say things, and it's not the end of the world if she's there, but she should not be in the same room. She should be sitting in a different room, because Bob's mom is going to try to drag her into the conversation. And it's very important that Elise stay out of it.
Okay. They have this conversation. Should it be something they do after West Virginia?
Yeah. Doesn't really, yeah. It's having it before West Virginia is not going to do anything except cause problem for Bob. He'll just obsess over it the entire time he's there. If anything, it should happen when he comes back from West Virginia. But even then, I don't know. It could happen. It could not happen. Play it by ear and see how everything goes. But it's not necessarily a conversation that it's Bob's to make or make the decision on having. His mom needs to make this decision.
Okay.
Because she's the one with the attitude problem. Bob could go to her now and it's just going to be a big fight. And Bob's going to get really angry because he doesn't understand the disrespect that's coming from his mom. She struggles to understand everything that Bob has been through.
Does she ever come around to things he's been through?
No. She will not understand.
Okay. Will Bob be able to contend with that as time goes on?
He will struggle. He does not understand when people do not take his word for things. People who would deem him trustworthy in other scenarios look at him sideways when it comes to some of these things. And Bob finds it offensive. But he just needs to understand that his truth is his truth. They happened. It doesn't matter what other people think.
So if he reminds himself of that, maybe during meditation, and
He'll get better at it in time.
okay.
Something he has to work with.
How is Bob doing with the Brent and Nikki situation?
He's doing better than expected. Bob's over Brent. He's over Brent to the point where we're a little concerned how over Brent he is. Bob wants to have a confrontation right now. It's going to be very, very difficult at the draft for Bob to not. Bob knows what he needs to do. He knows that there's a series of moves here that need to happen. But as Bob has been finding his edge, like we told him, he has been struggling with the time frame that all this is to happen on.
So at the draft, he just needs to trust in himself.
Bob needs to go to the draft and shine. Let himself shine. That is what will win. It's how Bob carries himself that's going to make the statement. He cannot let them shake him. And by not letting him shake him, it does not necessarily mean if someone says something to Bob, don't blow up. It means don't let them shake you before you show up. Have the conversation with Eddie that Bob has been talking about having. That is fine. But don't show up defensively. Show up as if you are yourself. It does not matter what happened. It does not matter that they got married. It does not matter that he doesn't like you. None of this matters. You're not there for you. You're there for Dylan, and you're there for Nikki. And even though that you and Nikki's relationship is going down a very unpredictable path, you have to allow this to play out. The time frame is important. You cannot confront Brent at the draft because you have to allow the time frame to play out for Nikki to have the opportunity to come to you. Will she come to you? That is up to Nikki. That is a decision that Nikki is going to have to wrestle within herself. But if you go to the draft defensive and abrasive and you tell Nikki something, you pull her aside and you talk to her, that's going to be a problem. You go there defensive and you let Brent shake you and you snap back at him, or if you put him on the spot like you're thinking about doing when it comes to voting on everything and the punishment for Eddie, that will piss him off. Part of this is tiptoeing around making Brent mad. And that's fine. Bob doesn't like it, but it's fine. It's a necessary evil. Bob just needs to go there, be in his own space, let things happen, be smart, leave, be the bigger person, give Nikki that opening to come to you. That's important. If she doesn't come to you, she doesn't come to you. But you've got 5 months to wait. 6 if you count this month into January. That's it. It's all part of a process.
Speaking of that process, Bob, he wants to, he's been thinking a lot about Dylan. He thinks about him every day. Wants to talk to Jason about the Dylan situation as a first step in the process. He wanted to know if you had any advice on talking to Jason and navigating the situation.
Bob needs to confide in Jason, even though he's questioning whether or not he should. Because Bob can't keep doing this on his own. It's been weighing over him like a dark cloud for years and years and years and years now. Every day Bob thinks about it. Every single day it haunts him. Every day Bob sees Dylan's face. Every day Bob thinks about Christy. Every day Bob blames himself for Dylan dying. The longer Nikki goes without talking to Brent, the harder it is on Bob, because he feels what Dylan felt to a certain extent in his own way, through his own experiences. Bob didn't go through what Dylan went through, but Bob went through different things that he could use Nikki for. And Nikki has abandoned Bob. And when Bob came across those text messages from Dylan the other day, it just reopened the wound. Because Bob feels like he tried to be there for Dylan. He tried to make it clear. He tried to say that he tried. But unfortunately, Bob just couldn't erase the pain. Bob couldn't take away what was done to Dylan. Bob couldn't take away the grief, and Bob couldn't give Dylan his power back. Dylan had his free will taken from him. Dylan had someone he looked up to and respected and trusted and loved take advantage of him in a way that broke him. Dylan was in his early 20s when he took his life. It's almost 2 decades, a little less, 2 decades that Dylan had to walk around and carry what happened to him. Bob just struggles because that one night, that 3 o'clock in the morning, and Bob got that phone call from Dylan, and he said, "Why is Dylan calling me at 3 in the morning?" Bob answered the phone, and he went and sat in the chair downstairs, and he talked to Dylan for several hours, and most of the time Bob was just sitting there with his mouth open, just dumbfounded. But all of this happened. All of this happened when Bob couldn't stop it. Bob couldn't stop Dylan from hurting. Bob couldn't stop Dylan from suffering. Bob couldn't stop. He couldn't step in. It's not like in the SSP when Bob can just fight everybody. Bob didn't walk into the room and see it like he did with you. Bob didn't walk into a room and see 3 guys around you that he could fight. Bob didn't walk into a room and see them looking at Nikki. Bob didn't walk into a room at that sleepover and see what happened between Brent and Dylan. And that bothers Bob a lot. Bothers Bob that someone was able to take that power away from someone, and all for such a trivial, temporary, selfish, disgusting sexual act. Nothing enrages Bob more than things that are done to Bob without his control or his consent or his free will, or except for things that are done to other people. That's the only thing that enrages Bob more than things that are done to him without his consent. And after this happened, Bob struggled for years talking to Brent, bled over. There's a lot of confrontation that almost happened, A lot of times Bob had on the tip of his tongue things that he wanted to say, and he swallowed them. It's been very hard on him.
Will it start to ease the pain, him starting by speaking with Jason first?
Yes, because Jason will talk to Bob. Jason's not going to go anywhere. And that's not a knock on Adam. Adam talked to Bob about the Dylan stuff for countless hours. Adam's listened to Bob. Adam is just going through a lot in his own life, and Jason is a little farther in his life than Adam is. He's a little more established. Jason already has his family. He has his children. He's got his kid. He's got his house. And, you know, he's older than Bob is, so he can give Bob a little bit of a more experienced ear, I would say. With that said, you know, in all respect to Jason, it doesn't necessarily matter what Jason says because Bob has to make this decision on his own, but Jason will support Bob. Might be a little bit difficult for Jason to hear and maybe a little bit difficult for him to understand, but Bob is an honest person, and this has been weighing on Bob for the better part of 5 years, almost 6 years, that Bob has had this information. Bob had this information when Dylan was alive. Bob was in the same room with Brent and Dylan on several occasions, and it was difficult for Bob. Dylan is a carefree, loving, down-to-earth, wore his heart on his sleeve. It's very much like Bob. And that's why Bob struggles so much with the Dylan's passing. Bob has the ability to endure more than Dylan because of the things Bob has gone through, his lifetime in the concentration camp, his other lifetimes, who Bob is as a soul, some of his life experiences, some of his soul growth has led him to where he is now. And Dylan, Bob feels a lot of the same things that Dylan felt. Bob just can't bring himself to end things, no matter how much Bob hurts. He always thinks of other people, and it stops him. Thinks of Amy, thinks of Elise. And that's all it takes. And Bob just wishes he could have been that for Dylan. He wishes that Dylan could have picked up the phone that time and called him like Dylan said he would. Bob's going to live with that for the rest of his life. Bob's going to wonder for the rest of his life why he couldn't have done more, been better. It'll eat at him forever. Nothing that Jason says to Bob will take that away. Nothing that you say to Bob will take that away. Bob will struggle with that forever.
What if we were to ask Dylan to come in now and speak with Bob? Would that help?
Can try.
Is it possible for us to speak with Dylan? Or have Dylan present himself to Bob at this time?
Yes.
Am I speaking with Dylan? Or am I still speaking with Bob?
Dylan's here. I don't know if we'll talk if he's here.
Is it possible for Dylan to maybe help Bob process this, be there for him? I know he said he's hugs him and is there for him, but
I'm always here for Bob every day. Always coming up to hug him.
would it help you, Dylan, or help Bob share your story if you were to share it in a bit of detail now?
I showed him.
And showed Bob what happened?
Yes.
Will he be able to heal from this? Has he helped share your story?
You're going to have to help him.
We
all have to help him.
How can I best support him in this?
Listen. He's very angry. Bob is very uncontrollably angry.
He sometimes wonders if this is what you want. Will this help you? I think Bob worries that he's being selfish in wanting to share this information.
We have to heal my mom.
Okay. So he should schedule a regression with your mom for sure.
In time, yes.
Will you come to your mom at that point?
Always.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to help Bob sort of cope with that in the meantime?
It wasn't his fault. I wanted to end the pain. And the shame that I was carrying every day. Bob couldn't take that away. No matter how bad he wanted to. And yes, I need Bob's help.
Bob will always fight for you. That is who he is.
I'm here to help. I'm sorry that I'm putting you through this. But I need your help to heal my mom. And you're the only one strong enough to do it.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell Bob?
I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry for the pain that I've caused you.
I appreciate you coming in today to try to give Bob some peace and clarity.
I'll talk to him more when Amy does her session.
Okay.
We can come up with a plan. But Bob already has a plan. And it will work.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Don't let Brent shake you. Don't let him change who you are. You're better than he is. Don't let him drag you down. Don't let him drag you down.
Well, I appreciate you coming in today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for helping Bob out today in this moment. I'm sure that message means a lot to him. I'm sure he looks forward to talking to you during Amy's session.
I will be with him at the draft.
That will be a very good comfort. We thank Dylan for coming through. We will see if we can speak to Bob's subconscious again.
Yeah.
Not to keep things on a negative note, or I guess not negative, but sadder note. Bob wanted to ask a couple questions about Lucy.
Yeah.
We wanted to see if our plan so far with having added extra thymex and lymph tone, despite the vet having said to hold them, if we are doing the right thing.
They're not hurting. They might not necessarily be helping as much as you think, but they're not hurting.
Should we tell the vet that we had added
It
these?
doesn't really matter.
Okay, so should we just
see what he says going forward.
Okay. Bob wanted to know how he can best shrink her bump.
Might shrink a little bit, but it's not going to shrink a ton. But keep sending it white light. Make sure her nutrition is up. Bob's thought about giving her some turkey that's a little more plain. Just get the protein in her body to help build the muscle. Gotta keep her moving. That's important. Keep sending that white light. Meditate. Meditate over her body. Don't just meditate away from her. Put the hands on her body. Even though Elise doesn't necessarily like dogs very much, it would be highly beneficial if Lucy was knocked out high, if Elise would put her healing hands on Lucy's knee. She has very healing touch.
Okay.
But if they were to group meditate around Lucy, it would be even more effective. Unfortunately, it's something that's just going to take a lot of attention and a lot of time and patience.
Is that something Bob and Elise should make
every day? Every day you need to do it.
So they should set aside a time.
Every day you should do it at the same time.
Okay.
Amy and Ryan need to be sending light also. It also wouldn't be a terrible idea if you all got together and formed a circle around her. In addition, it wouldn't be terrible if you created a prayer list where everybody sends her white light at roughly the same time.
Okay.
Lucy's drive will keep her going. Lucy's contract with Bob will keep her going. But you just have to keep doing everything you can. Unfortunately, and Bob's not going to want to hear this because it's hard to hear, Lucy's not going to live forever. But, well, she's not going to live forever. And as she goes towards the end of her lifetimes, things will change.
What sort of things?
Just natural things, her weight, shape of things, just variables that will change. Because they're always changing. Every day they're changing in some way. Not necessarily for the worse, but just things change. And Bob just has to be ready to understand that. Just have to be ready for things to just change. And it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's for the worse, but he's got to be putting in that effort, putting in the work, loving her, enjoying the moment, not taking any day for granted, not letting the days slip by. Don't let people like Nacht Waffen or Brent or your mom or anyone else steal those good days from you. Enjoy them now while you can. She's here. She loves you. She loves Elise. Spend that time with her. There will be time when she's not here when you can do whatever you want, but right now is not that time. Your time now needs to be spent focusing on Lucy, healing Lucy, helping her work with you, and moving forward with her, working with you.
He's concerned about her eating and how to get her to eat more.
It's going to be a trial and error process. Just have to try to work in some turkey without paradigm and build her back up and be patient. And
would it help at all to maybe get her some dry food that's specifically a turkey diet only?
No, I'd stick to what you're doing for now.
Okay. Is there a sort of schedule he should try?
Lucy's problem with doing something like that is that she's picky and you don't want to give her too many options, because then she might shun what she needs to be doing.
Okay.
She's stubborn.
That's true. Is there a schedule that we can maybe get her on with the RSO that would help?
You just need to make sure that she eats between large doses. It's okay to give her a large dose, then maybe go a day or whatever, but make sure she eats, then large dose. It could be an every other day thing, it could be an everyday thing, but she just has to make sure she's still consuming food.
Okay. main questions with Lucy. I guess while we're in the process of doing all of this and sending white light in general, can you also at this time send Lucy some white light?
Yes.
Okay. Bob was interested in how, since we've started doing the QHHT sessions, how our timelines seem to have sped up significantly. He was curious if you had any insight into that, as to maybe why that's happening.
QHHT allows Bob to look into things a little deeper. Sometimes Bob's curious to the point where he goes looking for more of the picture than he really needs to go looking for, but in doing his investigative work so far with the QHHT and the work that he's done with his sister, he's been able to find details on his life path and where he's headed in life. And one of the interesting things about QHHT is people provide themselves with insight on different topics, and that's interesting and it's very helpful for people if they put in the work, but a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. People aren't willing to even acknowledge that things are wrong in their life, that they may not be the best versions of themselves, that there may be an inadequacy within themselves, that there may be something that's not perfect, that maybe they're not on the right course. Maybe that 9-to-5 job that, Tim or Sally has is just not what they need to be at. And maybe they need to be doing something else. And Bob doesn't have any of those problems. Bob's constantly wondering how he can improve and be better and become better and get rid of his flaws and work through them and become more loving and better for other people. He wants to know how he can get away from his addictions, whether, the food, the sex, the escapism into drugs, and just trying to numb his feelings. Bob doesn't want to run into those things. He wants to get better at them. And in the same respect, Bob wants to move along in his life. And there's a lot of confirmation for Bob where he got, yeah, you are on the right path, even though the things we're doing are extremely non-traditional. You are working towards those things. And at the time, when a lot of this knowledge started to come out, Bob was wondering if this path is really for him, if this is really where he's supposed to be on, if this is really what he's supposed to be doing. And as he got that confirmation, it's like these little sparks started to ignite inside of him, where he realized, yeah, maybe I am supposed to be doing this, and it's not that crazy. And QHHT is in large part a therapy. People look at it like it's just hypnosis, but this is therapy. If you're willing to put in the work, you can really grow and become a better version of yourself. And that's what Bob did. That's what Bob's doing. Every day he thinks about it. Every day he puts in the work. He doesn't necessarily have the output of his content yet, but he's putting in the work every day behind the scenes, and that's what matters. That's how Bob is even able to speed the timeline up. That's how Bob was able to take something that's supposed to happen 10 years from now and make it happen in the next year or two.
Okay, by putting in the work.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bob has mostly the rest of his questions revolving around space and the secret space program, so we'll kind of go on a theme. He was curious if you could maybe explain to the layman, I suppose, what the secret space program is.
For lack of a better term, to have a simple explanation, the secret space program is a military wing in space. The secret space program is Space Force behind the veil.
Okay, and what is its purpose?
Protect Earth. Just like the United States Air. Well, I guess the analogy I'm about to give is loose, because the United States government exports freedom, if you know what I mean, by bombing other countries. But at its core ideal, the United States Air Force protects the United States. The U.S. Marines protect the United States. The U.S. Army protects the United States, at home and abroad. And Solar Warden, behind the veil of Space Force, protects the Earth and the solar system from extraterrestrial beings that are negatively aligned and may not have Earth's best interest at hand.
Okay. Well, what would you say to people who hear about the SSP and have a hard time comprehending it?
Well, it doesn't really matter if they believe it or not. It exists. Similar to what we were saying earlier about the polar bear in Africa example. It doesn't matter if you don't think it exists. It doesn't matter if it's outside of your paradigm. It doesn't matter if somebody from Michigan's never seen a koala. It doesn't mean koalas don't exist. And it doesn't take a very large thought experiment to come to the conclusion that extraterrestrial races live throughout the solar system. Not only this solar system, every solar system. Every planet has life to some capacity on it. Some form of consciousness, whether it's the planet itself, rocks on the planet, animals, plants. Life exists on Earth in the way that you all have come to understand it existing on Earth. But life exists outside of Earth in extreme situations, sometimes extreme heat, sometimes extreme cold. Sometimes it might be a methane-based atmosphere. Sometimes it may be a different gas. Sometimes it may be oxygen. They may breathe CO2. They may, But if you take any living being, creature, it doesn't matter what they are, spider, koala, polar bear, giraffe, let them evolve for millions of years on their own. Or, like in humanity's case, let a very curious alien species or two or three or four or five or 20 some come by, pick up these animals, tinker with them, mess with their DNA, add DNA strands, take DNA away, drop them back off on the planet, let their experiment play out. That happens all over the place. Alien races are constantly picking up other beings and experimenting and doing whatever and dropping them off and taking them with them. And it's all about learning. It's all about exploring for a lot of people. And some alien extraterrestrial races have rules where they don't do things that are too nefarious. Other beings don't have those rules and they do whatever the hell they want. There's a lot of variance out in the universe. And you don't really, the universe is constantly expanding. It's huge. And for someone to think that, wow, we're the only intelligent creatures. Well, you're not even the only intelligent creatures on your own planet. Elephants are extremely intelligent. They bury their dead. They mourn their losses. There's beings in the ocean that communicate with advanced communication. People don't even know what's in the ocean. They don't even know that extraterrestrials are in the ocean, living in the ocean, in domed cities. Some of them have a couple 100,000 people living there. People are oblivious to that. And they think that life can't exist outside their planets. Life exists on your planet. Life exists in your planet. You live on a honeycombed Earth. There's caverns within your planet that are housing intelligent life that you don't know about. Nobody looks up. There's UFO sightings every day, all over the planet. Go on the internet. But nobody wants to believe in them. There's life all around you. You just choose not to see it. It doesn't matter if people don't want to believe that aliens exist outside of Earth. They exist on Earth. You're just too closed off to understand that.
What kind of leads to, Bob had asked, where are all the aliens? So they're among us?
They're everywhere. They're on Earth. They're off Earth.
He had also asked why don't
They're watching.
He had wondered why aliens don't come down and help save the planet.
Bob knows these answers, but it's not our job to interfere. It's not our job to solve your problems. It's not our job to come help you advance. If If we came down here and gave you all the answers, well, you'd have a solution to all your problems, but you wouldn't have any true answers. You wouldn't have had to go through any adversity to learn your lessons to come out the other side. And so if we just give you all the answers, you're just going to have to go through these lessons again so you can actually learn the lessons. A lot of times people may be faced with a difficult situation and turn to someone, like, for example, Bob turning to Jason, or if, a young man turned to his father or woman to her mother and looked for advice. Well, if they give the answer and then that solves the problem, well, they've moved to the solution and moved beyond the problem, and that's great. It's behind them, and we're no longer facing the problem, but we didn't learn anything along the way. We didn't instill any values in ourselves. We weren't able to instill any pattern recognition. We weren't able to instill any problem solving. Your soul wasn't able to grow. That's what's important, that the growth take place on Earth. The way we're stepping in right now is to keep the Draco and other extraterrestrial races that don't have humanity's best interest at stake away from humanity so that they can evolve at their own pace. We incarnate on the planet to help from the inside out, but in large part, we're here to just allow people to evolve at their own pace. We're here to support. We're here to help from a distance. We're here to help in a hands-off way. Different races leave crop circles. We may leave different breadcrumbs. We may leave different clues. We may work with your governments on a covert basis. We may have interactions of that sort behind the scenes. But if we all descended from the sky in ships and came down here one day and solved everybody's problems, or we revealed ourselves in mass where it was clear, we wouldn't be helping anyone evolve. We would just be causing more problems. Different problems.
Makes sense. I've had some more questions.
And we don't want to be worshipped. Just because we are more advanced does not make us above humans. We are just another race out in the galaxy doing our best to learn and grow and evolve and explore and expand and meet other people and try to work together. We're not above Earth humans. We're just a little farther along. And they need to understand that. We are not your gods. The Draco are not your gods. The Arcturians are not your gods. We are all just different beings. We're all just learning. We're here to help you. We're here to partner with you in many ways. But we're not here to do the work for you. We're not above you. No one is above you. While God does exist, the isness is out there. That consciousness is out there. We are not that consciousness. And you should not worship us. And we cannot and will not solve all your problems. Neither can the Draco, neither can the Greys, or any other race that's out there. No one can solve your problems. You have to put in the work.
Is the isness and source the same thing?
Yes. Just is.
Okay. Bob had some questions about the SSP. I'm wondering why they target children.
Has to do with their psychic abilities. They're not too bogged down. It's easier to amplify their psychic abilities and identify them. Who has the abilities? It's easier to train them, and it's easier to wipe their minds.
Does testing in schools help them determine this?
In part, they're always watching, looking to identify special kids. Kids that can think outside the box. Their brains work different, can problem solve. They're leaders. Kids that aren't shaken by things that many people would normally be shaken for.
Okay. Bob had wondered.
But it's mostly finding children that have unique ability and a unique way of thinking and looking at the problems. Or souls with specific soul lineage, but it's a little more difficult to identify.
So they don't know that in advance?
Not always, no. They're trying to get better at it.
Bob had wondered if SSP soldiers were promised pay and if we would ever be compensated.
It's a little unclear. I think some people have been promised pay, others have just been taken.
Bob wants to know, how did Solar Warden remove Bob's memories?
They've done it a few different ways. They've used a pen device that's similar to what they use in the Men in Black. They've also put him in the chair. There's a chair. You can erase memories in.
Is there a way that he can recover?
Montauk chair.
That he can recover the lost memories? Is there a process?
The Andromedans will help Bob, but meditation and regressions can help people recover their memories.
Okay. Bob wanted to know how many times he's been revived in a med bed.
Too many to count.
Are these really his second legs? Or are they more than that?
They would routinely throw trainees in the battle room in their actual real bodies. Bob's fought in that battle room in his real body many times. They do it to simulate the severity of going into battle. They want everybody to realize that battle is life and death. Every decision that Bob makes can lead to him either being alive or him being dead. That one memory Bob has in the battle room of him going high on that Draco warrior and the Draco going low and cutting his legs off taught Bob a very valuable lesson that he's never made again. And that's why Bob struggles in this life with overthinking. Every time Bob had an instance like that where he was severely injured, in that instance he had both of his legs cut off, and he continued to fight and cut the head off that Draco warrior. He then spent 2 weeks laying in a med bed while his legs were regrown, where he could think about nothing other than what happened, what he did wrong, what he needed to do differently. And by doing that, they trained some of these frontline soldiers in a very harsh way.
He had also wondered how many times he had died in this life and been revived. I assume he means his SSP experience.
Bob's died at different times in different bodies. And when he's on mission, he's very rarely in his actual body. They put him in clone bodies, different versions of Bob that he can be put into where it doesn't really matter if he dies. And they have the technology where if Bob was to die, they can capture his soul so it doesn't enter the reincarnation cycle, and then they can put that into a different cloned vessel and send Bob back down. If they wanted to, they could just perpetually keep sending Bob back down into battle. Send Bob down, he dies, they catch his soul, put Bob in a new body, send Bob's body down there, he dies, catch his soul, put Bob in a new body, send him down there, he dies, catch his soul, put him in a new body, send Bob down there, and he dies and catch his soul. Till the mission's done. Depends what they're doing. Depends what the target is. Depends who the target is. Depends, is this an assassination? Is this a rescue? Are we recovering technology? Are we trying to infiltrate? Are we trying to stop somebody from doing something? Or trying to capture a high value target? Depends what the mission is. There's many missions that Bob has been on. Very talented in a lot of ways. It's a very, very unique set of skills.
He had wondered if you could maybe pick out a particular mission to describe to him, give him a little insight into something. There was a mission where he had gone in to maybe rescue a girl from a house party, he wondered if that was an SSP mission and if you could give him more information on that.
It was an off-planet mission. It's not a planet. It's outside the solar system. Bob was part of a small group that was to infiltrate this, called a party, for lack of a better term. There were 2 souls Bob was trying to rescue. He was successful in rescuing the main soul. But as Bob grabbed her, the male she was with was pulled back into the group, the party, shoulder to shoulder in this house. Could barely move, could barely get through this house. It's a multi-level house. There were people everywhere. And this was a more of a cyberpunk dystopian type planet. It wasn't a traditional planet. This wasn't a traditional house. This was a downtown business district. Think Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, New York, Dallas, Houston. Cyberpunk, futuristic, dark, gritty. Shoulder to shoulder in this house. Bob and his 2 people he was with made their way through the crowd as a very small infiltration team. Bob leaned into this girl as if he was part of the party, and he whispered in her ear. And he said, "If you don't come with me now, I can never save you." She made one look at Bob and realized that he was genuine. She could see it in his eyes. So she came with Bob. She went. And as Bob made the move for her, and the guy she was with just got grabbed by some people who realized what Bob was doing, and he had to make a split-second decision. So Bob saved who he could save. He grabbed her. He threw himself between her and the people that were trying to get to her and pushed her out the door. It took him a minute to get behind her, but they made it out. The 2 people that Bob was with followed behind him. They ran. They were pursued, but they escaped. They saved her.
When Bob had
She was going to be sacrificed.
sacrificed to her.
They were going to kill her as live entertainment at this party. She was going to be sacrificed in front of the party.
Who did he rescue her from? Was there a specific organization or?
Get the sense that there were some Nacht Waffen officers at this party. Just a bad group of people. It's just a bad group of people blowing off steam. And there were these 2 people there that didn't quite know what they were in and didn't quite know who they were. They were high-value targets that we needed to get to. One of them was safe, one of them wasn't.
When Bob had this vision, or dream at the time, he had seen Brent, and Amy had said it was
a projection. They were trying to throw Bob off because they knew that Bob and Brent have a contentious connection.
So they were hoping
that the projection of Brent ahead of where they were at would throw Bob off and stall him so that they could catch up. It did not work. Bob is trained very well. And even if Bob thought it was Brent's, he would have left anyway. It doesn't matter. Whether it was just a projection and it didn't work. That's all that matters. It did not stop Bob. He knows better. He stayed on mission and they rescued her. They were able to slip away without having to fight. Because if Bob had to fight, they would have been in a lot of trouble. Because there were 3 of them. Bob, and he had 2 people with him. And then the girl they rescued. And they would have had to fight what would have been the equivalent of a lot of Nacht Waffen officers. And it would not have gone well. It would have been extremely difficult.
Or would have not gone well for Bob and his team.
It would have been extremely difficult to get away. And Bob would have had to sacrifice the two people he was with. They would have stayed behind to fight so that Bob could get away with this high-value target. And they would have died.
Okay.
But they were able to slip away. Barely, but they were able to slip away. And then they were able to later make their way off planet. But Bob's quick thinking and improvising allowed them to slip away.
Speaking of Nacht Waffen, Bob had reached out during a meditation and sent them a warning that if they didn't back off, he'd be on a ship by nightfall. Did they get the message?
Yes. That's why they have not been coming as hard.
Is it?
They're readying their troops.
Is this something that is a good thing for Bob to be doing, sending these messages? He had worried he was provoking them more.
It's a mixed bag. They're watching Bob closely, but they're not coming as hard as they were. They were hoping that they could deter Bob. They could throw him off, scare him from coming to his grandma's house, throw him off of his mission at home. And they do cloud his mind a lot at home. But they've made him more angry. They've poked the bear, so to speak, and he is not happy. He has a few more things in his waking life that he needs to take care of before he can totally free himself up from his past and allow himself to move forward. But he is getting there, and he will get there. Those things are not that big of a deal, and they will pass. And then Bob can use the full might of his concentration on moving forward and doing the work he needs to be doing. They are nervous of that, and they're trying to stall him as much as possible, but the ball has begun to roll downhill, and there's very little they can do to stop him other than physically taking him off Earth, and that's impossible. They can't take Bob. He's too strong, and he's supported by too many people. If they try to take Bob, they have to fight Andromeda.
It's got to be a little terrifying to know you've got an entire race coming for you.
There's many races that are willing to protect Bob. There's many races that are working together in space. There are countless beings who will fight to protect Bob. And that goes for everybody. It's not just Bob. There are countless beings who will fight for other people also.
Right. Speaking of other races, Bob had a question about the cat being who showed Lyra to him. Who that was, and if you could give him more information about what he saw.
It was Lily.
It's Lily, okay. Was she just showing him that Lyra exists, or?
She was showing him her home. Where she comes from, what it looks like. She's very loyal to Elise despite their differences. At times.
Is she a part of like the royal family or a royal guard?
She helps protect Elise. She's part of the royal guard.
Does Larry have any?
Bob and Lily became close friends because of Lily's close proximity to Elise.
So this was in space. They first.
Many different lifetimes, yes.
Okay.
But because of Bob and Elise's connection, it has brought him around Lily.
Definitely good for him.
She protects Elise. Elise doesn't always like it, but she's always there watching Elise's back.
It's good to know. Let's see. Bob had wondered how Solar Warden feels about his war against the Dracos. Are they aware that he's going on these off missions?
Bob is a unique asset. He's very difficult to control, and Solar Warden is refining him into... James is helping refine Bob into a leader, but Bob has a little bit of trouble taking direction at times.
So he'll continue to refine this person, this version of himself, through James.
Bob has a lot of respect for James, and Bob falls into line because of his respect for James. And James and Bob have saved each other many times. They've fought together many times. There's a lot of mutual respect there. And it's that mutual respect that helps Bob fall into line. Bob has a major problem with what they've done to him, what they've done to other beings, other people in the program, what he's seen happen to other soldiers, people he's seen die, victimized. Different things have happened. It's hard to put them all into context right now, but it's because of that Bob has a problem with authority. He always has, but different things that Bob has seen have really bothered him. But Bob understands there's a bigger picture at play here, and that some of this was a necessary evil. But long story short, Bob and Solar Warden are working towards the same ends. And for that reason, Solar Warden backs off. It's Bob's connection with the Andromedans that allow Bob to move as freely as he does.
So they sort of look the other way because he's still promoting the mission.
It would almost be better to look at Bob as an Andromedan officer on Earth rather than a Solar Warden officer on Earth.
Okay.
It's Bob's connection with the Andromedans that gives him the ability to freelance a little more as he does. And they're working towards the same goals in a roundabout way.
So when he goes on these missions and he's able to access his weapons and armor and shields, he had wondered if this is something that he takes with him from the Solar Warden time? Is this something that's just ingrained in his soul then? How does it work?
Yeah, I don't think that's coming out today.
Okay. Bob was recently doing a protection meditation and saw a group of Greys during this time. What was happening there?
There's a team of Greys that's assigned to watch Bob. Keep an eye on what he's doing, monitor, record, watch. Try to throw him off as much as possible. Every day they try to muddy his mind. It's why he forgets things. It's why he struggles to find thoughts. It's why sometimes when you guys are talking, it's like someone just plucks the thought right out of his mind. It's being affected on a core level every day.
Is there anything he can do to help combat these?
Just continue to do the protection meditations. He needs to do them when he wakes up. He needs to do them a little more seriously. But, Bob reached out in meditation the other day and sent a message to them as well. And what he did scared the shit out of them. scrambled them. They immediately stopped. It's a very delicate game that Nacht Waffen is trying to play. They're trying to throw Bob off and affect him so that he doesn't move forward, so that he can't wake these other experiencers up. But by doing so, with Bob being such a unique soul, in the sense that it's just making him angry. This is just not the battle that they're going to win. And so it's just something that's going to have to play out, but they're not used to the resistance. They're not used to somebody being prepared for what's happening. They're not used to somebody having insight into what's going on. But Bob's a planner, and every day, even the days he doesn't feel like he's making progress, he's making progress. Some days will be harder than others, but overall, he just has to keep moving forward and putting in the work.
Bob had wondered if you could pick out an SSP mission that stands out to him.
Not today. Bob's really struggling right now.
Okay. He had wondered about the ET fight that Amy and Ryan had experienced. Ryan had dreamt about, perhaps. Was it real? Can you give him any insight into that?
It was real. It's kind of a mixed bag. The sense that they were coming for Amy and Ryan. They want Amy because they want to punish her. Those beings she was working with on the ship in her other lifetime. Some of them are coming for her to punish her. Some of them are trying to get to Ryan also, because he's involved with us and what's happening. So they came for Amy and Ryan, and they called for me. And I came, and we fought. And they were unsuccessful in taking them because I showed up. They were mostly grays. But I get the sense that there was Draco with them. One. There's a mixed bag of officers. It didn't work.
So it was unsuccessful. Is this something that might happen?
It will
again?
continue.
Okay. So Amy and Ryan.
We're making a lot of people very angry. Amy is fighting back against the beings that she's involved with in that life, and it's a mixed bag. Ryan is heavily involved in fighting the Draco. Every time Bob goes to the ship, Ryan goes with him. And every time they get up there, people die. And they're not happy about that. They're trying to get rid of Ryan, just like they're trying to get rid of Bob. It's like they're trying to get rid of Paul. It's like they're trying to get rid of everybody. And they're trying to control Nikki. They don't need to kill her. They can just suppress her. Bob can't get to her anymore. Bob and Ryan need to come together. They need to talk more.
Specifically about the SSP?
About everything. They need to come together. They need to be closer. Both of them need to put in the work. Amy also. They're trying to separate all of you. And it's been working. Kill your egos and come together.
So we should not give each other space. We should...
No. You don't need space. No one needs space right now. Space just gives them opportunity. Opportunity to shake Bob. He's barely holding on a lot of days. Barely.
Ryan and Bob play games together?
Ryan and Bob should play games together. They need to set a schedule and they need to play games together. Okay. It would be beneficial if they played Apex, but at this point, anything that Ryan's willing to play would benefit them.
Okay. Bob wanted to know if the demons that he saw that came for him when he was sick, were those the Draco? Or is that something else?
It's not completely clear to me. I kind of get the sense that there's some extremely high level Draco, but it's a little unclear still for me. I'm not being allowed to see all that.
Can you tell Bob where Brad's soul originates?
Bob's being attacked really bad.
Let's think about that pyramid of white light.
It's got the sun's got, I think it's Andromeda.
Okay.
Your Brad also.
Oh, from the bookstore, Brad?
Both Brads.
Okay. Bob had wanted to know how Brad fought in the SSP.
We fight the same.
Is his rank similar to yours?
Very similar, yes.
Bob find out more about...
More will come out about Bob and Brad in the future.
Okay. We had a very strange experience the other day where somebody wrote on Bob's phone, Horny Balls, and we were curious what that was because he did not recall writing it.
Nacht Waffen is trying to fuck with Bob. Trying to get in his head. Trying to let him know that they're watching. That they're... Felt like they were winning in the moment. Bob's more of a threat if he's retaining.
They were trying to push him into that.
They're just trying to throw him off. That predator sound that was up here last time, that there, different things that they do to him that he notices, things like being deleted or missing or just little stuff that they're trying to fuck with him.
He had a couple just other questions about, he was curious who was behind the porn industry. If it's the Draco, if there's a connection.
It's a topic that Bob should explore with Amy. It's very uncomfortable right now, but I do get the sense that it has to do with keeping the sexual energy as a great driving force in humans. And if you take the sexual energy away from all the males in the population, take a lot of that inner fire away. It's like throwing a blanket over a fire. And so the porn industry takes that will to fight, escape the system away from a lot of people. You can control men with sex because it's almost like porn is kind of like a slot machine where you pull the lever and every time it comes up, you just get another attractive female. And there's really, doesn't necessarily mean they're more attractive than anybody in regular everyday life. They're just different people. It's just like, it's just somebody for everybody. There's just a million countless variations of what people look like. And it's just a dopamine paradise. It doesn't really matter. It's just about, it's like heroin or any other drug. And then you just fall into a cycle and just distracts people from the goals of what they should be doing. The more time spent looking at porn, the less time you spend looking at the government. I mean, how many people notice Nancy Pelosi's insider trading? I certainly don't notice Nancy Pelosi's insider trading when you're looking at a pair of titties, you know what I mean?
Sure. Okay.
And it's through that harvesting of sexual energy. Draco feed off it, and so do the Greys.
Makes sense. Is that why Bob's stronger when he retains?
Yeah, everybody's stronger when they retain, but Bob's abilities are like tenfold stronger.
Okay. So he should continue to retain, especially prior to the draft?
Yes.
Okay. Bob's last question had to do with finances. He wondered if there would be a financial reset for the world, I guess.
In time. The right leadership is in charge. We have to get through this current situation that we're in, but it will happen in the future.
Okay. And,
we'll have a more prosperous future.
what should he do in the meantime then with his investments?
He needs to invest in his business. He's not going to want to spend the money, but he needs to do it. And the thing that'll make him feel better about spending the money is he needs to move after he does it. He needs to move. He needs to plan it all out, have it all mapped out, and then just move. He's not going to feel good about it, but he has to move.
Okay. Is there anything else you need?
And it's important that he invests because he will look professional. Bob already can speak professionally. He just needs to look professional. And if he can make it look legit, it will take off faster. Because it's just, people just need that visual connection.
Okay. Is there anything else that Bob needs to know today that we haven't covered?
A lot of these topics can be revisited to expand on at a more comfortable date. Bob just really struggled in this regression with how hot it is and his back hurts really bad.
I understand. We'll do another one.
But the Dylan stuff should be explored with Amy.
Okay. All right. Well,
this is one of the most uncomfortable beds I've ever laid on.
As always, a big thanks to our patrons for your ongoing support of the channel, allowing us to do this work, and to you for checking out our content. To hear more of our work, check out the various playlists here on the channel, and head over to our Patreon for the stuff that we can't release publicly on YouTube, as well as for membership tiers with discounts on your next online session with us. If you're interested in finding your purpose for incarnating on Earth, where your soul comes from, how you can best navigate your life, and hearing ideal advice by you, for you, check out the links in the description for booking an online session with Elise or myself today. We look forward to learning and growing with you. I'll talk to you in the comments and see you in the next one.